Real quick before I start this episode, when I was going back editing, I realized I'm really stopped up right now. My allergies are really bad. It sounded like I said Keenan Peely. It sounded like I was saying Keelan Peely. Sorry about that. I'm really stopped up. I said his name like 3 times, and one time it sounded right, the other 2 it didn't. I know his name is Keenan Peely, but I was talking about him in one of the segments, so I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the show. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to From the Bench. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and today's episode we're going to go over a few things. Should be a fun episode today. I got a few messages yesterday after watching yesterday's episode saying I was a little bit angry and had some pent-up anger, and to be quite frankly honest, I was pretty angry. But today it should be a little more fun episode, I guess I should say. Just not near as bad, and we're going to go over some things that are going on around the program on this Tuesday. We're going to go over Josh Heupel's recent press conference following the Arkansas game. We're going to go over the offensive and defensive MVPs coming up on the midpoint of the season, and we're also going to go over what happened around the SEC this past weekend and how that affects the rest of the season for the Vols. So before I start, thank you guys for all the support. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like this video and follow all of the socials. You can see it down here. All the handles are right there. We also have a Facebook page, so make sure you follow that. I will put the link of that in the description. But let's get right into it. So Josh Heupel talked to the press yesterday. We know that that's not really his cup of tea. He's not usually a big press conference guy. He just doesn't really enjoy it. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. He just doesn't really enjoy talking to the press. But he did yesterday following the Arkansas loss, and a few things that he went over. The one thing that really stood out to me is he was open about saying that he regrets not calling a timeout really after Dante Thornton's big play on the last drive. I guess you can credit him for taking that one on the chin, but he also could have taken a lot of things on the chin, so I guess that one small thing doesn't really make up for all of it, but credit to him for taking that on the chin, and it doesn't really seem like something he's open to talking about with the press, but he did there. So there's that, and he also went over the injury report, not obviously the full thing. We'll get that later on in the week coming up, getting closer to the game, but he recovered. He talked about Brew McCoy. I thought it was a wrist injury. Obviously, after those 2 catches, he came out, and they were messing with his wrist. His wrist must be fine. It could have been a stinger, just got hit on the helmet to his wrist. I don't know what that was. But apparently he has a rib issue. I don't know. We'll see how that affects him or how long it could keep him out. It may not keep him out at all. Josh Heupel did add that none of these injuries are long-term. None of them are season-ending, so we'll just have to keep an eye on them. Squirrel White's dealing with a collarbone issue. I don't know what that was. He may have been out. I didn't really see it in the game. I feel like on the last drive he didn't play, but I don't know. I didn't see the play. I don't remember the play. And we all saw Bryson Eason had a knee issue. I don't know how long he'll be out. It wasn't a very pretty sight, but hope Bryson Eason is all right. We'll know more about those injuries getting closer to the Florida game, and if they extend past the Florida game, we'll keep an eye on those throughout the coming weeks. But yeah, I think Josh Heupel, he did an all right press conference. Like I said, he took credit for not calling a timeout on that drive, but there's a lot of things that he could have took credit for. Somebody had said something on social media saying he should have took credit for all the awful play calling. He should have addressed that. But that's besides the point. Trying to keep this episode a little more positive than what it was yesterday. But yeah, obviously a lot of people aren't happy with Josh Heupel right now. And hopefully like I said kind of yesterday, I just hope that it's like a turning point for this team, because you have one of 2 teams. We've had so much hype built up that this team should be a national championship contender. So this could go one of 2 ways. It could go one way where this lights a fire under this program and they all play for each other, play together, something changes with the coaching, the play calling. I don't know. It could be a good thing, but it also could be a bad thing, because you've got to also remember that this age of college football isn't really for the team. Hopefully we have a different culture that other places don't have, and people want to play for what's on their chest, or not necessarily what's on their back, but they want to play for the power tee on the side of the helmet. But these are still 18 to 22-year-old kids, outside of John Campbell, he's old as dirt, and Keelan Peely, and a few others, obviously. But these are kids that are getting paid to play a sport at the end of the day. So these kids could tear apart. Who knows? But hopefully, obviously, that this lights a fire under this program, and they want to just turn it all around. We'll really see on Florida, in the Florida game. I hope that we come out and just beat the mess out of Florida. That would really kind of shut everybody up, and it'd shut me up. It'd shut everybody up. So hopefully that's what happens. Obviously, Florida's not a very good football team, and it's a team that we should beat by a lot, but we know a blowout versus Florida is a lot different than a blowout versus another team that we should beat, because it's Florida. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Josh Heupel's press conference. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. I mean, like I said, he talked about what he should talk about, and he's never been a big guy to want to talk to the media, or it's just not his thing. He's doing it so he doesn't get fined, like Marshawn Lynch used to say. But that's really what he said. We'll keep closer eye to those injuries in the coming weeks or the coming days, getting closer to the game. But we're also going to talk about the offensive and defensive MVPs. I was trying to decide if I wanted to talk about that today, just because, coming off of a loss like that, is that the time to talk about it? But I felt like I wanted to shed some light on this football team. It's still a good football team, so I wanted to give some props to who deserves their flowers. So first, we're going to go over the offensive MVPs, and we're going to go over the defensive MVPs. First, I'll go over the offensive line MVP. The offensive line as a whole has not been very good, but Cooper Mays is who I'd give the offensive line MVP to. He has been playing the best out of all of them. For forever, it's just been, can he stay healthy? His whole college career, just kind of like his brother. Cooper Mays has been playing pretty good this year. He's in control. Like, he's a very good football player for this team. The receiver MVP, this isn't who I think is the best receiver on the team, because I think the best receiver on the team is Brew McCoy. But Dante Thornton has been our big play threat. He's played good just about all season. He has been our leading receiver a lot of games. He was the leading receiver against Arkansas, which was only one catch, but that's just the tale of that game. He only had one catch, and he was still the leading receiving. He led the team in receiving yards against them. And I think it's pretty obvious to say, I don't think it's even close who the offensive MVP is. And as soon as you hear offensive MVP and Tennessee Volunteers, it's Dylan Sampson. He has been unreal this season. And I was watching the Monday Night Football game downstairs with my dad, and he just reminds me so much of another guy who used to wear 6 in the orange and white, and that's Alvin Kamara. Just his speed, his ability to catch out of the backfield, and really his patience behind blocks. That's what's really made him hit the next level this year. His patience behind blocks and letting his blocks develop and then finding the hole and going, that's been a game changer for us this year. So credit to him. I think he's going to be a really, really good NFL running back. He's got all the tools. Like, being a receiver in the NFL, unless you're really Derrick Henry, you got to be some sort of receiving threat in the NFL, just because it's such a passing game. But yeah, Dylan Sampson is the from the bench offensive MVP, nearing the midway point for the Tennessee Volunteers. Now on to the defense, and this one may get a few people, but obviously, again, it's another one of those, I don't think he's the best player on the defensive line. So we're starting on the defensive line. I don't think this guy's the best player on the defensive line, but through the first half, nearing the first half of the season, I think Joshua Josephs has been the best player on the defensive line for the Tennessee Volunteers this year. He has been playing great all year. Nobody really did much against Arkansas, but other than that, he's been playing great all year. Obviously, James Pierce is the best player on this defensive line. There's no doubt about it. And he's affected the quarterback in many other ways that don't show up on the stat sheet. He just hasn't got home. And credit to him. Like, James Pierce is still an incredible football player, will be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. He is the real deal. But Joshua Josephs has really taken advantage of all the attention being on James Pierce, and he's played great all year. Our secondary MVP is Jermon McCoy. I know that's kind of, again, why I was hesitant to put this section or segment into this episode, because he did kind of get his rear end handed to him by Andrew Armstrong this past weekend when we played Arkansas. And credit to Andrew Armstrong, he's a good football player. But Jermon McCoy has no doubt been our best player in the secondary. He's been better than both safeties, or all of the safeties, I guess you'd say. And he's been better than Ricky Gibson. He's been our best DB all year, which is why he was given the assignment to guard Andrew Armstrong a lot last game. And I think, call me crazy, I mean, not crazy, but I think Keelan Peely is the defensive MVP for this team right now. He is just, he may not have the best stats, but you can just feel a difference with this defense than what it was last year without him. They all act like he's the dad on the team because he's, 26, 27 years old. He's very, very old. He's in what feels like his 100th year in college football. But he's been good all year. Other than that one boneheaded play he had against NC State, where he late hit that guy. I mean, he's been good all year. And he's just that sense of leadership with the team. And he's leading one of the best, if not the best, defense in college football right now. Again, like I keep going back and saying, it's hard to say that after what happened against Arkansas, but it's not like the defense played bad against Arkansas. He's been the best player and the leader for one of, if not the best defenses in the country. And again, James Pierce is the best player on this defense, but so far through the midseason, I would go with Keelan Peely as the from the bench defensive MVP nearing the midway point through the year. I know, such a great award that I'm sure Keelan Peely is so just thrilled to receive. But that is what I think. That's just my that's my 2 cents on who's been playing good for the Vols this year. And really, those guys have really just contributed to our success in a major way. I think the team MVP, if you want to go that far, is still Dylan Sampson. He's been otherworldly for us this year, and like I said on one of the last episodes, not the last episode, but I think he'd be the best running back in college football in any year that Ashton Jeanty was not playing football. So there's that. But into our last segment of the day, just what went on around the SEC and how it all shapes up and affects the Vols in the coming weeks and the rest of the year. So I don't know if anybody watched it, but at noon at Kyle Field, Texas A&M absolutely killed Missouri. I think it was like 41-10. I watched most of the game. Just absolutely drilled them. It was not even fun to watch. Missouri got exposed, I think. I think Missouri's a very overrated football team. And I thought a loss like this was bound to happen for them after they barely escaped against Boston College, and then they barely escaped against Vanderbilt. See, that's what's crazy. Like, Vanderbilt, I don't know how in the world that team lost to Georgia State. I don't know how in the world that happened. But Vanderbilt's a field goal away from really being like, I mean, if you take away the Georgia State game, which I guess you can't really do that, but they're like a field goal away from being undefeated right now, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Brock Taylor obviously didn't play very good against Missouri, but, I mean, he's been pretty good for them all year. He's got a crazy long leg, the Knoxville native. But, I mean, A&M looked good. They look a lot different from the first game of the year against Notre Dame. And I take back what I said. I think it was my first episode. I said I think Marcel Reed is better than Connor Wegman, their backup, or Marcel Reed's the backup. And I felt like at the time that was a good thing to say, but by the way Connor Wegman played against Missouri, he just looked in control of that offense. He looked new coming off of his injury. So credit to him and credit to the Aggies. They're going to be dangerous. They have the third easiest schedule left in the SEC. I think they've got Texas, but then I think the hardest game after that's LSU. And that's a winnable game for them. So the Aggies, whether you like it or not, could end up 10-2 at the end of this year and very much in the race for the college football playoffs. I mean, if you only have a loss to Notre Dame, and if Notre Dame keeps it going, they look like a different team from Northern Illinois. If you only have a loss to Notre Dame and only a loss to Texas, like, could see the Aggies in the playoffs. Also, around the SEC, we'll get to Alabama later. Ole Miss bounced back in dominating fashion against South Carolina. I think that game was like 27-3. Not a very exciting game, but Ole Miss just bounced back as they should. And Georgia bounced back against Auburn. It was a little close there for a while, but that's what Georgia loves to do, is keep a team close for a little while and then just pull away in the second half, and they did just that. They ended up killing Auburn. It was not close, and that's the Georgia we all know and we all hate. That's just, they're a really good football team. And if Carson Beck, that he's going to be the difference for them this year. If he just, like I said, I was telling one of my buddies, in the Alabama game, he didn't even have, he just needed to be bad. Like, if he was bad, they would have won that football game. But he was horrendous. So, I mean, if you just get good play out of Carson Beck, that team's going to be really, really, really hard to beat. They're going to be a tough out for the Vols when we go to Georgia to play them. We obviously struggle on the road. But, I mean, we've got a long time till then, so we'll worry about them when we get there. And obviously, the big one, as I just talked about Vanderbilt, Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, what a tale of two weeks for them. I mean, it's like I was telling my buddy, where do you even start if you're a coach in that locker room? You go on the highest of highs to the lowest of absolute lows in a matter of weeks. And, that's what you get when you coach kids. It's just like us. Kids are going to mess up. They're not professional athletes yet. So we'll see what happens with them. Another thing I wanted to say about Alabama, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I saw it. One of their team captains, Malachi Moore, who is a very highly touted safety for them, should be a first-round draft pick either this year or next year, absolutely lost his mind. I don't know. Vanderbilt's quarterback, if Vanderbilt got a first down, the game was over. And he ran for a first down, and he made the tackle, and he grabbed him by his helmet and threw him in the dirt, which was a cheap shot. And then, he's over there just absolutely losing his mind for minutes. And don't get me wrong, passion's okay. You want to see people care. Like I just said, a lot of guys now are just playing for the money and what's on their back. He obviously cares, but you can't throw temper tantrums like that for minutes on minutes on minutes like he did. He just lost his mind. He was grabbing his mouthpiece and throwing it and just cussing everybody. I wouldn't venture to say that it was nice words that he was yelling out, but he just was losing his absolute mind. It was quite frankly ridiculous. And then he had that little incident later on after he threw his mouthpiece. Vanderbilt was getting ready to kneel it, and they had put the ball down, and he snuck behind the ref and went over there and just kicked the ball, just unsportsmanlike conduct. And then Alabama's defensive coordinator was trying to put a sub in to come get him out of the game, and Kalen DeBoer was coming right behind him. And the coach, if you watch the video, is to the numbers. He's out there trying to get his attention and tell him to come out. And Malachi Moore saw him, and he just, in the nicest way I ever, told him to see you later, F off, whatever he said, I don't know. But I don't think it was nice. So if I'm the coach, you can't have that. That's a lot of draft stock, I think, that loses for Malachi Moore. Obviously, I don't cover Alabama, so I don't know too much about them. I know a lot about them, but we'll see what happens with him. But if I'm a coach, that's a game suspension. You can't have it. Could you imagine if that happened under Nick Saban? Well, first of all, that wouldn't have happened under Nick Saban. But if a player acted like that under Nick Saban, he would, oh my goodness. Nick Saban would have grabbed him by the face mask on the field and pulled him out of the game. That's unacceptable. That's got to be at least a game suspension in my eyes. You can't condone that activity. When a coach is trying to check you out of the game because you're acting a fool, you can't just wave them off. That's not okay. And the way that he acted in the cheap shots and the kicking of the football, that's not okay. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it's kind of just a coming back down to earth moment for them because they came off such a high. And again, it's like I said on my first ever episode, this is still supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Crimson Tide. They've got 3 freshmen in the secondary and obviously the 17-year-old Ryan Williams. Like, they've got a lot of freshmen playing football. So, maybe, like, that's the reality. Like, they're going to have some hiccups with a young team, a new coach. Like, it'll be interesting to see how Alabama plays out the rest of the year. They've got not a favorable, like, they play us, they play LSU. Obviously, Auburn's never, it's like kind of like us in Florida. Like, it doesn't matter how bad those two teams are. It's always going to be a good game, it seems like. So, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for them, how the coaching staff really changes. I don't know. Like, that's not acceptable. But we'll see. And also, it kind of, obviously both of those losses for Alabama and Tennessee, like, it probably takes away our college game day or whatever. As it just got released that game's at 3:30. But it's just like the stakes for the third Saturday in October are so much more raised. Like, both of these teams are, it's like, if you lose, the college football playoffs it's not going to happen for you. So it's going to be a good game. It's going to be exciting. The stakes will be high. Neyland will be loud. But we'll get there when we get there. We got to worry about Florida first. So, I mean, if we lose to Florida, then the stakes are just down the drain against Alabama. But so let's handle the Gators first this week. But also, as I say handle the Gators, I kind of wanted to say wrap the whole SEC up and how that affects the Vols. If you don't win out, the SEC championship's not going to happen for the Vols. The college football playoffs could still be alive if you lose one game. But now it's like A&M has just really come out of nowhere. And I think Texas is the real lock. Obviously, nothing's a lock in college football anymore, as we just keep seeing good teams lose. And they'll have a good game this weekend against Oklahoma. And that's another one of those rivalries where it's like it doesn't matter how bad those teams are. That's always going to be a good game, no matter what. So I feel like Texas is going to be in it. And I bet it'll end up being Texas and Georgia, but you've got A&M. You got Alabama still. You've got LSU, who's really a quiet sleeper. Like, who knows? But if the Vols don't win out, the SEC championship is not an option for them. Obviously, winning out needs to be the goal. But we've got to worry about beating Florida this week. So I think the least of our worries don't need to be national championship. It doesn't need to be college football playoffs. It needs to be beating the Florida Gators this Saturday. But I think that just about wraps it up for this Tuesday edition of From the Bench. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for the support on the episode. I wanted this episode to be a little more uplifting, a little more happy, I guess you'd put it, just after how last show was almost a rant on just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, and rightfully so. You know, I mean, that game was so angering this past Saturday, but angering, is that a word? I don't know. But it made me very mad this Saturday. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on Thursday for the overview episode for the Florida Gators. Thank you guys for watching, and go Vols.